Hello, hello, hello. So we are so happy you are on Soul Talk. This is a special episode on how to prevent, and a lot of us today, especially with COVID, we're going through, unfortunately, anxiety. 80% of depression comes from anxiety. How to overcome anxiety and depression. I've got with me my co-host, Steve Roth. I'm just going to quickly give you a little bit of credibility on myself on the subject, and then I'll ask Steve to introduce himself. He's got a personal story, an amazing story. And if he could do it, trust me, anybody can do it. So the story is like this. In terms of this field, I've written over 20 books on self-help, from Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism. I'm friendly with the head of the Kansas City suicide prevention. And also I have taken from Chabad Care, we've been educated on suicide prevention as a rabbi, a pastor, pastoral care from the top experts in the country. And I'll discuss what I believe is the essence of depression and mechanisms of overcoming it. And most importantly, I can't wait for you to hear Steve. Steve, just introduce yourself for a second.
I'm Steve Roth from the United States, and now I live in Nicaragua. I'm a personal trainer to Madonna and Chuck Norris and Henry Kissinger. And because we're starting this off, I'd like to give a shout out to my friends that helped me go through this experience. My friends in Costa Rica helped me go through this. One was Rabbi Spalta, my friend Eagle, Isu, Joseph, and I had a very good girlfriend, Martha, and her two children, Andy and Joseph. I want to thank you, because if it wasn't for that team that helped me go through this, I wouldn't be here now.
Awesome. So just to explain, Steve was a personal trainer in Manhattan, where he was the personal trainer of many stars and famous people. And then he went off, he retired at a young age with a fair amount of money, and he'll tell his story soon. I want to share with you what is the cause of depression. Now, we all know the symptoms of depression. The obvious symptom of depression is a person begins to have suicidal thoughts. I've been depressed, I think, twice in my life. And like you have a thought of basically of your own death, of killing yourself or something like that. The other thing, classic symptom of depression, is unfortunately a person loses their drive in life. If before they were, I don't know, even if it was the drive for food, or even if, let's say, it's a sexual drive, or even if it's an intellectual drive, they just lose their drive. Why is that? What has happened? And what I'm going to reveal to you, what my friends, nobody will reveal to you, because this is based on Jewish mysticism. And Jewish mysticism is the essence, it's the soul. It gets to the very core of who we are. Now, I'm not coming, God forbid, in an arrogant way. I have confirmed this with the greatest experts, really very top doctors. People have studied suicide their whole life, and they confirm that this is 100% correct. So I'm giving you a perspective from Jewish mysticism that will unravel the very essence of what happens. And once you understand that, you'll automatically know what the solution is. So in order to understand, how can an individual, I had it myself, millions of people have it, how can I be thinking about, God forbid, killing myself? Why would I have a suicidal thought? It would seem the most obvious instinct in a human being. Even a bug has this instinct to survive. Why would anyone or anything want to kill itself? And the fact is, it's happening all the time. We have 20 soldiers a day that are committing suicide amongst young people in a certain age bracket. I think it's the highest rate of death. It's a disaster. What is happening? Why does this happen? So in order to understand why we would want, God forbid, to hurt ourselves, you have to understand something else. Why do we want to even help ourselves? Think about that for a second. It might seem obvious. Oh, I want to get that, I don't know, laptop that I saw. But why? Who cares if you want it or not? And the answer to that is, you have to understand, each and every one of us is a composite of 5 different souls and personalities, 5 different things. Once you understand all 5 of them, you understand who you are perfectly. This subject itself could take us an hour, which we're not going to do, but I want to go through all 5 of them very quickly to understand where the desire for self and the desire against self takes place. So at the very core of who we are, in fact, the core of what everyone and everything else is God. Before God, there was nothing. With God, there is anything that he chooses. Everything has a soul and a body. Right now, this is my body, my soul. I don't see it, but you know it's there because I'm alive, I'm talking, etc., etc. The essence of ourselves is a godly soul. It's a part of God, which just like God, is compassionate. We all have compassion at our essence. That's a very, very brief description of our essence, but we all know that that is true. The second thing that makes us unique, animals don't have this, is we have a mind. We are the only species, if you want to call it, that has a prefrontal lobe. Even apes, they may be 98% similar, but 2% makes all the difference. And that's the difference of being able to think outside of your desires, your ability to think, and in fact, to direct yourself. For example, dieting. Animals cannot diet. A human being can say, well, I think I should not have that food, or I think I should have that food. We can think and implement. Sometimes you have to talk to yourself and say, do this, but we have that ability. The third thing is we have something in similar to animals. It's called an animal soul. So this is without going to the Kabbalah of where it's created, etc., etc. But this is a lower kind of soul, which is driven by an ego. We'll speak about the ego in a moment. But basically what this soul desires is to feel pleasure and not to feel pain. And that's super critical to understand. Pretty much everything we go through in life from this soul is about more pleasure and less pain. Obviously, if we're in a situation of pleasure, we may get to a point where pleasure itself becomes boring. We seek meaning. Or, God forbid, if we're in pain, our whole life can be about not having pain. Now, what is with the ego? What is the ego? The ego is the very sense of yourself, the ability to know that you exist. If you don't know that you exist, how could you even want your existence? But there are two things that the ego has, and this is something that many people are not familiar with. I recently discovered it, and that is, not only does it have a sense of self, it also has, do I like myself or do I not like myself? And the ego is different to the animal soul. The animal soul is always thinking about pleasure and pain. The ego is always thinking about status. It's about pride and not shame. So here's how the things work. If I can give myself pleasure, I can feel good and not feel bad. So the ego says, wow, you're an amazing guy. You are the man. And therefore the ego says, I love you. If, on the other hand, I myself give me pain, now this all might be kind of, the ego is not very smart. It's a very kind of primal instinct. So then the ego says, I don't like you. You give me pain. I want to kill you. Now, it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm in pain, because death is obviously worse. But the point is the ego's status. And where do we see this clearly? Let's say somebody else comes and gives you pleasure. People get married. Why do they get married? Well, that person's obviously giving them some kind of a pleasure, whether it's status, whether it's love, whatever it is. But then maybe that same person becomes a source of their misery. Well, you know, people, what they can do in divorce to each other, it's unbelievable. They would never do that to a stranger. They can rip each other, but before you loved the person. But before the person was making me feel good. Now the person is making me feel bad. Or even more importantly, they're making me angry because I have the status, and they're challenging the status. I don't want to go into many, many details and sub-details. It's an amazingly sophisticated thing. But this is the basic essence. The ego now is upset against you. And therefore, the thoughts that you have are projections of the ego's desire to destroy you. So as soon as you understand this, you can understand, well, that's just my crazy ego. Why on earth would I give into that? But the truth of the matter is, we do have to have hope. And I'm going to give you some tips on hope. Steve's story is 1,000 times better than what I'm going to tell you, because it's a real story, somebody that really was in a bad situation. But I'm going to give you really hope. And the first thing about hope, and I said this, you've got to get rid of the media. You can't have hope in the world. You know, it's an amazing thing. When you look at Gallup polls show that 90% of our Americans believe that they have a good life. Okay, with COVID, it's dropped a little bit. 90%, that's amazing. When in history did 90% of a country think that they have a good life? And yet, if you ask people, how is life? 50% of Americans have anxiety. I would say at least 50% are worried about the direction of America. What's going on? And it's the media, because the media has one message. It's fear. They have to get your eyeball. Now, they can't just tell you wonderful stories all the time. So what do? They tell you fear-based realities. And that basically kicks into a very important instinct that we have, which is the instinct to feel safe. So you become addicted to hearing these stories in order to protect yourself. But really, what is it doing? It's actually giving you the problem of anxiety. And when one of the great commentators, his name is, got a talk show, it's an Orthodox Jew, what's his name? There was a 24-hour marathon of positive speeches in the New York Public Library done by Chabad.org. Anyway, make a long story short, he said he said this concept that most people think their life is okay, but life in general is not okay. He thought it was the media, and I didn't believe him. It was the 2016 elections, and I said, that's it. I'm finished with the media. I got so sick of Trump and Hillary every single day and for 2 weeks later, I was happy. And since then, I've been happy. You understand? So you got to get rid of the media. You also have to have a belief that this world is not random. Everything that happens is designed by God. You think that it's just random that we can have a Zoom conference and people around the world, one click of the button, can see it? This world is a gift from God, and it's always going to get better. And so without further ado, I want to go into Steve's story, because here you have a practical example of somebody that really could have committed suicide for really losing a lot. And yet he pulled himself out of it. And if he can do it, I want you to listen carefully to the story, listen to how he did it. And if he can do it, you can copy him and you can do it too. Steve, take it away.
You know, I was so excited. I was living in the States, saved up a lot of money, and moved to Costa Rica. And I moved to Escazú. It was a beautiful place. I had a beautiful house, and everything was going good. And I met all these gringos. These are Americans that live in Costa Rica. And I went, how are you making all this money? And the guy says, we invested. I said, like, what are you getting a month, a year? He says, we get 33% a year. And I went, are you serious? Like, how could I do this? And he says, Joe has been doing it for 20 years. Mark has been doing it for 15 years. I said, really? I said, I'm going to put in $500,000. And I got $15,000 a month. And it was called the Brothers of Costa Rica. So you could look it up. And every month I got $15,000. I said, I'm going to put in another $250,000 and get $20,000 a month. Interest. Could you imagine getting this interest? And months went by and months went by, and I didn't know how to spend the money. And then one day, it wasn't deposited in the bank. I said, what happened? They said, it was a Ponzi scheme. They got caught money laundering. I said, oh, okay. When do we get our principal back? And the guy says, no, you don't seem to understand. They left. We don't get anything back. I went, what do you mean we don't get anything back? And he had to explain it 4 or 5 times. I said, I don't get anything? He says, no, you've lost everything. I said, no, they're insured, right? And they said, no, it's a Ponzi scheme. And I went, okay, I just lost $750,000. This guy's been doing it for 20 years. I've been doing it a couple of months. I went, wow. So another guy came around. He says, there's another place to invest money. I said, okay. He says, it's called the Vault. It's in Costa Rica. This guy owns properties. He owns hotels. He owns restaurants. He owns all this stuff. And you buy a portion into it, and you get some money back from each time. He gives you interest and stuff. I went, okay, it's like kind of similar, but it's not the same. And then a couple of months later, he killed himself in the bathroom.
Oy.
I said, okay, what do we get bang? Like, what happens? He said, no, we don't know where the money is. We don't know where the money is. What are you talking about? We don't know where the money is. And then a while later, bank Bantech. So you could look it up. It's truth. The bank went under. The bank got caught money laundering. And I said, no, it's okay. That money is safe because, it's covered by the, like the federal government, isn't it? And he said, no, it's a private bank. And I went, what's a private bank? No, it just went under. And I went from Escazú, living in a great house, to Jaco, Playa Jaco, in a tent, a camping tent.
Wow.
Right by the beach. Across the street was the beach.
Wow.
And I said, I don't have any money. I lost all the money. I said, okay, how are we going to survive? What are we going to do? And I said, okay, I have some jewelry. I'll sell some of the jewelry, but what are we going to do from there? So I'm laying in the tent in a fetal position. And I've given up. I've given up. I mean, everything that I worked for and I saved disappeared. And I didn't understand how everything could just disappear. I didn't understand. I didn't understand. I mean, I didn't do prostitutes. I didn't do gambling. I didn't do drugs. I just did investments. This guy has been investing 20 years, 25 years. This has been going on. How could this disappear within a couple of months? And I said, okay, Steve, you need to get yourself together. You're not sick. You don't have cancer. You're not dying. There's nothing wrong with you. You're physically healthy. Money isn't everything. More important than money is health. Now, mentally, I got to get my stuff together because I'm falling apart. So I said, physically, mentally, and spiritually. So outside, I got out of the tent and I started to do swimming. I started to do all kinds of stuff. And I said, now I need to reach out. I have to reach out to the Jewish community. There's a small community. It wasn't very large, but I went out and they helped me. They helped me. So Fridays, I went to my friend Joseph's and Eagles and Isu's houses for Shabbos, and they were helping me spiritually. Physically, I was working out. Mentally, I was prepared. I'm not falling apart anymore. I remember what King David had the ring on his hand from his father, and it said, what did it say? He said it had these letters on it. What did the ring mean? And he said, this too shall pass. And I went, okay, I'm going through bad times. Let's wait for the good times. Let's hang out and see what happens. And I'm not going to think negative thoughts anymore. I'm only going to think positive things. And then all of a sudden, I look across my little tent and I see another lady there in the tent, and her name was Martha. And she was from Colombia. And I went over, I started to talk to her, and things started to pick up. I had a relationship. She had 2 kids. That also helped. And everything was turning around. But I had to think positive, because when I was thinking negative, all that was coming was more negative thoughts. And I had a lot of negative thoughts. I wanted to die. I didn't understand why this kept happening to me. Why did this happen? And I could get deeper and deeper in this. I was so depressed. But then I started to think positive. And as positive thoughts came, things made me move. And I was more positive, and things happened that were better. And I stopped thinking negative. And I had to stop thinking negative, because if I continued thinking negative, I probably would have died. I probably would have died. I would have gave up. But as long as I thought positive thoughts, I kept going. And eventually everything turned out all right. But it was hard. It was real hard. And I had to believe that things were going to be better. And I really believed in God. And I kept going, I wonder what this means. Why is this happening? You know, this is unusual that all these things happen right away. But I kept thinking and kept praying, and the rabbis helped, and the people helped, and Martha helped, and the kids helped, and everybody helped. But I had to reach out because I don't think I could have did it myself.
So what would you say to somebody? I don't know. I'm just going to give you an example. Let's say, God forbid, I don't know, whatever age I am, and I'm feeling trapped. You know, there's COVID, I'm lonely, I'm maybe I got some unfortunately anxiety, and like I don't see any way out. Okay, where to from here? What should I do?
That happened, and I didn't see any way out. And I really believe in God. Whatever religion you are, believe in a higher power. And I just believe that you just hang out and see what happens. That's
Cool.
really what I believe. Just hang out, stick with it, and see what happens. And eventually, usually it gets better. Sometimes it gets worse and then gets better. Or sometimes you perceive that it's getting worse and it's actually getting better. But it's what's inside your brain. If you think it's bad, it's going to be bad. If you think it's okay, it's not as bad as it is. You know, as I was living in the tent, I kept thinking, $1 million houses are here, and I'm being woken up by the waves. And I thought all these things. I heard the ocean. I went out across the street, and the ocean was across the street, and I just thought positive stuff. Just the whole idea is just don't give up. Just keep hanging on, and think of it as a game. And that's what I thought. I thought of it as a game. Okay, let's see what else is going to happen. Let's just hang out and go with the flow. And that's what helped.
So tell me, what did happen? I mean, now you're in Nicaragua, you were in Costa Rica. How did that happen?
I needed to leave Costa Rica every 3 months because I was there on a visa, on a tourist visa. So I ended up going to Costa Rica. Going to Nicaragua. And as I was in Nicaragua, I stopped into this club because I was a personal trainer, and I walked into the club, and the guy said, "Hey, aren't you that famous personal trainer?" I said, "Yeah, how do you know?" He says, "I saw you on the internet." And he says, "Could you come back tomorrow? I'd like you I want to introduce you to somebody." And I went, "I don't live here." And this guy says, "Could you come back tomorrow? I want to introduce you to somebody." So I came back the next day. And this lady talks to me. And she says, "I want to hire you." I said, "Who are you?" She says, "I'm the first lady of Nicaragua. My husband's the president." I said, "Listen, I don't live here." And she says, "Let's make a deal." And I said, "What's the deal?" She said, "I'll bring you over. I'll get you a place to live and everything." And I ended up moving from the tent and working with the president's wife.
Amazing.
And I realized that if I had all that money, I would have never left Nicaragua. I would have never left Costa Rica. But because I lost everything, she had moved me over. What's the chance of losing all your money and then meeting the president's wife? And she offers you a job. So obviously, I'm supposed to be here and not over there.
Right.
And that's what I believe.
Yeah.
And everything turned out really good here.
So what do you feel is the reason that God put you in Nicaragua?
Probably maybe to do Shabbos, maybe to say prayers, maybe to bring up all the sparks that are here that need to go up here. I mean, I'm very happy here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very, very happy here. I have nothing to complain about.
Mm-hmm.
And even though this is a third world country, God has given me many, many, many blessings
Mm-hmm.
with good friends. I have a friend, Albert, that's the Italian, ex-Italian ambassador.
Mm-hmm.
And we go to the beach, we go to the pools, we work out together. And I'm living a very good life here, and I
Mm-hmm.
enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe, I mean, that's the only reason I could ever think that I'm here.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was there with all the money, I would have never left. I would have never, ever left.
Do you think that the episode made you more spiritual and your inner soul is happier and your sense of personal satisfaction with who you are is greater?
Retro speaking, if I was in Costa Rica, I'd probably be more not spiritual. I
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have been spiritual at all. And I
Mhm.
probably would have, who knows what would have happened at the end. But I came here and I became very spiritual.
Right.
Introspection, everything, you know, maybe lighting the candles. Very happy. I have no complaints at all.
Right. So I think that, that's what God does, is that ultimately, if we look at this world as like, from the perspective of the eyeball, which is easily fooled because some people don't have great self-esteem. So they're trying to, actually, where I live in Overland Park, I don't know if it still is, but it definitely is rated the best city in America. And for some time it was the wealthiest, but it's very, very humble. Like I had a guy, he just came here and he came on a $50 million private jet for a job and this and that. And he's like coming from all these like fancy Hollywood, California, all this stuff. And I said, do you know that this area where you are in, he's like, this is a hole. I was like, do you know that this is actually the wealthiest like neighborhood in America? But people don't show it off here because it's not next to a beach. They don't have a need. It's like very, very humble. And so the point is that people that are showing off their money, and that's just because they're like, they need to impress someone. If you're like okay with God and with your mission in life, you don't have to impress anyone. And so the point is that when we can like really understand that we're here for a higher purpose, I think this is a critical point to make us have meaning in life, is we're not here to show off a car. I mean, it's ridiculous. We're here to make the world a better place. And everything you go through, this I have no doubt about it, everything you go through is to make you into the soldier of God, into the angel of God, into your highest self that can make the world a better place. Steve, even think about this. You're like in Nicaragua, but here you are and you're creating videos with the rabbi and we're helping people. We know we're getting good feedback. So you would have never thought that. And only your experiences in life could have brought you to kind of the spiritual depth that, let's just use this example, that a rabbi would say, hey, this guy's got something to share with the world. And that's more valuable. Einstein said, a lot of people wanted him to run for politics. He says, I think an equation is more permanent than politics. So the spiritual knowledge that we get from these experiences, and of course, if you're going through something, again, reach out, think positive, do what you can, like Steve says, physically, mentally, emotionally, like get yourself kind of stronger. But the bottom line is that these things, they are making you. There's a great study from the Army. They do a lot of study in stress, unfortunately, post-traumatic stress. So this is an amazing thing that as we're going through our stress, we're also going through our growth. It's not like, nobody, like the chick doesn't learn how to fly without being pushed out of the nest. It's stuck in this little container in a little egg, and it's got to break that. And then it comes to life. And we all have to go through that. And then you got to be pushed out of your reality. And that's painful. That's what trauma is. You're like, what you thought was great. Like other people might have loved your life, but you were coming from this high status to this little tent. So by being pushed out of one reality, so it's traumatic, but then within that is the cocoon. It's creating a new dimension. And I've been through that in my life as well. And I can say, even though I can't say I have everything I want, but I definitely, if you would say, okay, I'll put you back in any part of your life, but I take away the gifts that you have, I'll say, forget about it. Because what I've learned, usually the hard way, to me is more valuable than anything in the world. That is what my life is all about now. And that is defines me, and that I know is the truth, and that's the direction that I have to go. So know that whatever you're going through, you are going through a journey which is going to make you into the angel that you, the wings that you have, but you may not realize it. This is going to bring out the best in you. And I think, Steve, one of the things that you said that I think that everybody really needs to take to heart is this idea, just let's see where this goes. This is a journey. Okay, it may not be exactly what my body wants, but God wants it. It's happening for a reason. So let's see where it goes. And then like that, your whole life changed. And I've been through those experiences as well. A lot of times, very, very difficult. You can see no way out. Boom, something can happen and everything can start again. And so any concluding thoughts, Steve?
Just don't give up. Don't give up. Think positive. Don't think negative. It's so easy to think negative. But when I started to think positive things started to come around. And I started to act better because it's so easy to give up. And really think about it. Just, hey, let's see where this road goes. Let's just stick it out. Because why give up? Just keep going. And I believe that at the end, everything works out okay. May not look like it as it's happening, but just don't give up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Beautiful, beautiful message.
And
Don't give up.
also, Rabbi, reach out. I reached out to my Jewish community and they helped me a lot. They helped me a lot.
That's very important too, that I think in the West, a lot of us have this Lone Ranger mentality, but there's actually a lot of resources on the internet. There are resources, people that are trained. There's a lot of suicide prevention. Just pick up that phone. There are a lot of people waiting to help you. Now, no one's going to knock on your door and say, hey, I know you're depressed. You have to reach out, whether you're coming to your local Chabad. Chabad is there for you. Whether you're coming, maybe even if you're a Christian, you go to a pastor, or you can even go to the Chabad rabbi because they believe in the 7 Noahide laws. They want to help you. Whether you go to your government agencies, and a lot of government agencies that want to help you find a job, there's actually billions of dollars of resources put in to help somebody just like you. But you have to pick up that phone. You have to say, hey, please help me. And there's a lot of love out there. But again, love actually respects you. So it's not going to like knock on your door and say, well, you're depressed, you got to do this. It's waiting for you to make that phone call. So reach out to the resources. The resources are there. Reach out to them. And I want to give you a blessing as a rabbi, whoever you are. I love you. I cherish you. God loves you. God cherishes you. I would always say to my kids, I love you and God loves you even more. I know however much I love you, and that's genuine, God loves you even more. You are his child. He knows how great you are, the potential you have. He wants you to, like Steve said, think positive, reach out. One thing is for sure, and this is the fifth thing that I didn't reveal before. I said 5 parts of our personality. We have a 5th part. That's what's called the Yetzer Hara. It's an evil angel, and it's an expert at depression. That's its key job, to get you depressed. And it wants you to feel guilty. Guilt is a terrible energy waster. I'm a rabbi. I believe in right and wrong. And I am telling you, never feel guilty. You may use guilt as a catalyst to return to God, as a catalyst to resolve, but feeling guilty is only negative. If you want to change, that's a forward movement. Everything in Judaism, everything in life is about the next best step. It's never about what happened. What happened was meant to be for the next best step. So get rid of the past, get rid of what could have been, what should have been, and only focus on what should be and what could be and what are the steps that I need to do. And again, if you don't know those steps, The Rebbe, the great master that everybody would come to for advice, would say, go to somebody who's an expert in the field. If you're not sure financially what to do, go to a friend who's a businessman. That's his field, business. He knows it. He wants to help you. Not sure medically, go to a doctor who's a friend. That's his field. Not sure spiritually, go to a rabbi who's a friend. You can go to Chabad.org. They've answered over 500,000 questions of random people, Jew or Gentile. Go to them. You can come to me, my website, KabbalahWisdom.org. Send me a question. I'll be happy to answer you too. The point is, you are worth this entire planet. It was created for you. You have a great light. You have something to share. And actually, to discover that light, usually you have to go through some darkness, because it's in that cave, it's in that tent, it's in that difficulty where suddenly your previous illusions of what reality are disappear. And you begin to understand what reality really is and the place and the role that you have in it. Steve, any other thoughts?
I just want to say thank you so much to Eagle, Isu, and Joseph in Costa Rica. They really helped me go through this. I also want to say, during my depression, I also got into a relationship with Martha that turned out to be fabulous, and her kids too, Andy and Jeffy. So thank you so much for all the help. If it wasn't for you guys, I probably wouldn't have done it as easy as I did it myself. Thank you.
All right. And finally, I want to say thank you to you, Steve, because you shared a story, which I think, look, you went through a real transition there and you got out of it. And I think that you are an inspiration to anybody that's going through a difficult time, that you can do it. You really have the power in you. We believe in you. We love you. And we really want you to succeed. And if you want to, write a comment how this inspired you. And then you got off your negative thinking. You got into positive thinking. You reached out. You got help. And you changed your life. And if this video was good and this video inspired you, send it to someone else. You know, little things like this actually can make all the difference. People's lives can be saved from watching a video like this. So if you know anybody that's depressed, and there are a lot of people, please, please send them this video. We hope that they get better. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Bye.